you
it
can
up.
ignore. Yeah. Approach it however you would like.
Just,
Have you ever had a tarot reading before?
only time with Katie when
Okay.
she's read some cards around me.
Okay.
Hmm.
Cool. So you're a little bit familiar with it. I'll just give you some insight into my process. So usually when I have a reading with someone approaching, it's kind of encompassed, kind of takes over my thought space. So I've been essentially preparing for you for a bit now. But what I do kind of in the spaces leading up to that is I clear my space. I do some smoke clearing. I do some like it's like a version of praying, I would say, over
Hmm.
the space. I'm essentially inviting in anyone who's in your corner in the spirit realm. Is there anyone that comes to mind in particular that we should bring into the space? Any like guides or ancestors that you feel like you're like would want to support you?
Yes, my grandmother.
Grandmother. Okay. And
Hmm.
what's her name?
Well, I called her Mimi, but
Mimi. Okay.
Frances. Hmm.
Okay. All right. Um, Good. We're bringing her in. Um, yeah, so really, like, I kind of see myself as like a conduit for them. We use the cards for to kind of stimulate the conversation or the point that needs to be made, the message. In this particular instance, we're doing it, to kind of understand the theme for that month and for the year. And I really felt like using the Wildwood Tarot for you. Um,
Okay.
this is it's more of a pagan deck. It follows the year of the wheel.
Okay.
Um, but I don't want pagan to be the thing that throws you off. It's more like earth-based spirituality. So it
Love that.
kind of uses the imagery of like the woods and animals and
Hmm.
yeah, all those
That's me.
creatures.
Hmm.
It's been a really powerful deck for me. And the reason I wanted to go to with tarot is because then you can look up the meanings for things as you go through the year. So,
Okay.
kind of take note with what like sticks with you through this reading, but then also you can use it for your own like own springboard for your own research too.
Hmm.
And usually, what I'll tell people with that is to um, skim it and see what pops out at you. Don't read like if you read something that's like, here's what the Four of Cups means, like just kind of skim it and see if there's any keywords that jump out at you as opposed to like reading it literally because it's not no definition of any card is ever going to fit because that's that person's interpretation. It's really how it's speaking to you.
Okay.
um, which kind of brings me to my next point, which is like whatever your impression of this reading is what's the most important. So I've had people come back to me and be like, yeah, remember when you said this? And one, just so you know, I don't often remember my readings. So if you say remember this, I'm going to be like, probably not. But if it's in the video, then I probably said it. But the other piece is too, is they'll tell me something and I'll go back and be like, that's not what I said. But it's important that what they heard is actually the thing that
Hmm.
needed to be the message. So that's how I approach all of this is I don't worry too much about what I'm saying because I trust that it's translating to you in the way that it needs to be. So, um, yeah. Any questions? You have your
Yeah.
something to write with? You're good
Hmm.
there? Okay,
Yes.
great. Great. All right. So I'm gonna just start shuffling. Mimi feels really strong with me, so I think she's really grateful that you asked her to be a part of this. There's also a few things that were coming to me before the reading that were really interesting. My So when I was preparing the space, I was setting this large chunk of cedar on fire in front of my kid. And they were like, "Wow, like it's a dragon," and like all these things. Um, but um, And we also in this space had just last night done our first like gingerbread cookie and house activity,
Oh.
which is a struggle for me because I want it to go perfectly. And I have a 2.5-year-old, so it was like very messy. And so I was like really just in the moment, like trying to recalibrate in the moment, like, okay,
Mhm.
wait, let's just let this be. Everybody can have fun. And it did end up being really fun. So as I was like clearing the space, I just kind of got this message that like that energy wanted to be a part of the reading, like the family time, but like not from a crafted like mommy blog kind of reporting, but like from a like really authentic, homegrown um, love for each other and the joy of being with each other, like truly joyful, not manufactured, right? Like, and
Mhm.
sometimes that means like recalibrating in the moment
Mhm.
to reset. So anyway, just that energy really wanted to be here. Um, and the other thing was too, I was really getting the sense that this is going to be a really powerful reading for you.
Mm.
Um,
I'm
and
very
it made me
nervous.
excited to be a part
Mhm.
of that.
Mhm.
Like, I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be
Mhm.
fun. Um, because like the phrase that kept coming back to me was, have you watched The Family Stone? Do you know this movie?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Mhm.
And he's like, you have a freak flag, and you
Yes, let
just
your
need to
freak flag
fly it.
fly.
Right, right.
Mhm.
That's what kept coming to me was like, you're sitting on limitless power. And if you can let that fly, like you can really let that be seen, it's going to be, excuse me. Sorry, I'm getting over a head cold.
No problem.
If you can really, like, there's something there
Mhm.
to explore.
Already I'm loving this already.
This is kind of how it goes. I just let things come through intuitively. And I'm like, if this is meant for you, then it's gonna
Mhm.
vibrate somewhere in your being, and maybe not now, but in 6 months when you watch this again, or 8 months, or even when you're watching this again next year, and you're like, I wonder how accurate that was.
Right.
Another tool that I use is my planner for this. I don't know if you're a written planner person, but
Mhm.
I do like to write my cards in the month and along with some of the key points so that when I open that month, I'm like, oh, okay, this is what I'm focusing on.
Okay.
Um, so that's just an option. These are all suggestions for you. There's no rules. More like, hey, does that feel good? Give it a shot.
Okay.
All right. And I will, once I get all these laid, I'll let you see what it looks like and then we'll start going through the cards.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Let's see if we can get it all in there.
Okay.
Are you able to see? There should be one center card and then
Yes.
12 cards kind of in a circle around.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And it's okay if you didn't like catch all of those. We're going to go through them one by one.
Okay.
Okay. The theme card kind of wants to wait until the end. And usually that just means like the rest of the cards are going to help me understand the theme. So I'm going
Okay.
to start with January. We've got the Four of Bows. And this is so in this specific tarot, because it's more earth based, they use bows, arrows, stones, and so I think they use cups still. No, vessels is the word.
Okay.
Um, and in the real, like in the traditional tarot, that is actually. Can you hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, bows would be wands. Is that right? Stones is pentacles. Vessels is cups. Bows is wands. No, excuse, yeah, bows is wands and arrows are swords. So just to kind of keep that, it's just if you're like, I want a deep dive tarot, here's some things to think about.
Okay.
Um, and then the two parts of the tarot that we're working with are the minor arcana, which is anything that I say four of something or a number of something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, minor arcana tend to be I I don't I see them as like I don't want to say weak, but as like not as potent or not as permanent of an energy, a little bit more temporary, more fluid. Whereas the major arcana, which is like there is a number, but there's just like a theme for those. Those are pretty potent. So the months where it's like a minor arcana, it's probably going to be, I would say, like more background noise. It's still going to be a theme that floats through the month, but the major arcana months, which looks like, well, that's funny. There's only one. It's just going to be a little bit more heightened. Like it's just going to be a more potent, permeating kind of energy. Okay, so the Four of Bows celebration is the theme for that one. And what I'm kind of getting, so it's like I'm gonna show it to you again.
Okay.
So there's like these are wild women, like wild femmes. Um, so there's this kind of feeling of like um embracing the wildness of the feminine,
Mm.
um and doing that, like there's two kind of versions of that. One is like doing that in community with other people. So this may be like a discovery of a new community. You may find that you're collecting a different kind of community and this is the theme that runs through them. This might be with people you already know and you're just discovering like a new side of them, like the vulnerability shared in the group kind of like it bumps up a notch. But it's also like all the feminine parts within yourself as well. Like, and then the theme is celebration. So it's like you're really celebrating that this is a part of yourself and each other. And like, um, and it's like spontaneous and organic. So this is nothing that you need to create or manufacture. It's just like be open to it, and allow for it to happen. Um, okay, so that's January. February is the Five of Vessels. Vessels are translate to cups in the traditional tarot, and they cups are generally our emotional connection. So the theme for this one is ecstasy, and um, I feel like just like coming off of that kind of a January, you're just gonna have this really heightened sense of like enjoyment and awareness of like your emotional depth and emotional capabilities and connections, but also like uh these like new connections with yourself. It's just like this heightened awareness of what's happening around you. um it feels like a leveling up. Like this is like a month where you're leveling up. You've already done the leveling up. You're just like getting to explore the new level. And like, oh wow, what's the air smell like up here? And like, does food taste differently? Like, what kind of like adventures can I do that are different and new that are calling to me, like on this level now that I'm on? Um, and that might be also what's the celebration aspect from January is like, okay, dude, I just like, I did it. I leveled up. Let's like take a moment to celebrate that. And then February is kind of like, oh man, I'm reorienting to this new level. And this is so cool. March is a six of bows. And the theme here is abundance. Yeah, big breaths. So there's kind of a theme already brewing here with like fire and light and nature. And I'm that's feeling a little bit like the wildness piece, like really peeling back like the layers. I like in human design we call it deconditioning. So like deconditioning to the wild spaces inside of you. The another thing that I noted from your human design, and I don't know if you've done this, if you've done like or looked at your human design at all before, but um, so you can find a free chart almost anywhere. Like you could Google it. I like using myhumandesign.com, but just don't feel pressured to buy anything because she is like wants to sell you everything. Uh, her site's just very aesthetically pleasing, so I send people there because it's pretty. But there are other sites that are not as pretty that will actually like, give you the whole thing, and it's like just raw and real, and you can use that to go and find all the answers.
Okay.
But one thing it noted, and then I put in your birth time of 3 p.m. So
Mhm.
if that's different, it could change this. But one thing that I noted was like your ideal environment is caves. And caves are like literal, metaphorical. Obviously, we don't have a whole lot of caves in our like current present life. We're not like that's not like our we're not an indigenous people who live in caves. But caves can be metaphorical. So anything that feels cave like, and usually this is like your home or like your office or somewhere that's yours that you can really customize and um, make like pleasing and pleasurable to you. And then people come to you versus like you having to go out into the world to them.
Mhm.
So it's usually like you can create that in your life, but it's like part of this like this first card is like in a cave. And this one for March is also giving cave vibes. And so I'm just thinking like that's a big piece of the picture for you is like really making sure that you have this environment available to you
Mhm.
wherever you are. And
Mhm.
so just kind of like like letting that percolate. Like what does that look like if I'm at home? What does that look like for me? If I'm, you know, visiting someone, how can I recreate that like quickly so that I feel like I'm in my ideal environment? Because our ideal environment is usually where we tend to like light up and thrive and come up with our best ideas and epiphanies and all that stuff. I don't know. Does that resonate with you? Like, have you been in like, do you create caves for yourself
Yes. Mhm.
generally?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like
I,
cool, quiet environments. Yeah. And
yeah.
it's just yes. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's going to be part of the like, that's part of the fabric of this.
Okay.
Because these are, so I just want to like say this outright. Like, nothing here is set in stone. This is like a reflection of the energy as it is right now.
Mhm.
Um, there are like ways and reasons why this would not be fully the expression of your month. But I think that part of the way to for this being the expression for your month is that you're really integrating caves more into your like existence.
Okay.
Because like this is March's the theme is abundance.
Mhm.
And so that's definitely one we want to make happen, right? Like that's abundance is great. And not that I'm like, oh, there's a bad card. We want to make that not happen. There's lessons in all of these, but
Mhm.
abundance is something that we would love, right? Like in general, we want there to be more streams of abundance. And this could be like the month of learning how to allow abundance to flow, so that like this isn't necessarily that March is going to be where you're like suddenly feeling expansion, but that you're like, oh wow, okay, I need to like remove this and add this. Like being in my cave is making me realize that like this relationship needs to shift, or you know what, I need to spend more time in my cave because I'm spending way too much time
Mhm.
out here, like in everyone else's environments, and that's not serving me. So it might be just that space of like where recalibration is happening so that abundance can happen.
Okay.
Okay. So April is the Eight of Arrows, and that is arrows correspond with swords, if you're wanting to look that up later. And so I'm going to show you this because this feels very different from like the journey we've been on up to
Mhm.
this point. And
Does that actually say struggle?
it does say struggle. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
interesting to go from abundance to struggle.
Right. And celebration in January,
Yeah.
your celebration, ecstasy, abundance, and then boom,
Mhm.
struggle.
Mhm.
And again, this is like not meant to be, this is meant to be like a, hey, there's a lesson here. This is not necessarily meant to be like, oh, fuck, I got to just like tune out April because it's just going to be a struggle. I will say, if you do, we've been rewatching Harry Potter. I don't know if you're
Oh,
like a Harry
the
Potter
best.
fan.
Yes.
And I've been like, so prophecies are really fascinating to me. And I was thinking a lot about the prophecy. There's that prophecy that like swirls over Harry and Voldemort that's like, neither shall live while the other survives. And how like that whole thing, it really only exists because the whole relationship between Voldemort and Harry only exists because of that prophecy. And if that prophecy hadn't been there, then Voldemort wouldn't like be going after Harry and wouldn't have, cursed
Mhm.
him and basically essentially made him a Horcrux. Like all that stuff. None of that would have happened without the prophecy. So, like in this situation, I just like I want to be careful to say like that you don't look at April and say, well, shit, April's going to be a month of struggle, and then therefore like it is a month of struggle,
Mhm.
right? It's really an invitation to see the struggles that come up as the way. Like the struggle is the way, because there's something there. Either it's a message from your own being and saying like, we're done with this, we don't want to do this anymore, so it feels like a struggle, or there's an attempt to create something or to manufacture something that isn't authentic, and so it feels like a struggle. Another aspect of your human design that's coming to mind with this is that you're a generator energy type.
Mhm.
And excuse me, I would definitely encourage exploring that, because you're a generator, and let me just double check, I believe you're a sacral authority. I have it pulled up here somewhere. um Yeah. So generators are the builders. They're big creators of the world, but they have a responding energy, which means that they are meant to respond to opportunities that come up. So they're not necessarily meant to create the opportunities out of nowhere. They're meant to like be walking down the street and like see like, oh hey, there's a need for a playground here, and then you have like this really cool mechanism called an authority. And for you as a generator, it's your sacral, which is just your gut. It's
Mm-hmm.
like when people say like listen to your gut, that's true for sacral generators. It's not true for anyone else. But um it's simple but also hard because we are not taught to listen to that part of ourselves. Generally we're taught to listen to our head, our mind, like the logic.
Mm-hmm.
um Logic will lead you astray every time if it's not backed up by your gut. So the big thing to practice here is like, if an opportunity comes, for you to ask your gut, and if your gut says yes, or it feels like an expansion inside of you, then it is a real yes, regardless of what your mind says. And if it says no, or there's like a contracting feeling, then it's a real no. And your mind is going to like be like, oh, but it'd be such a good opportunity, we would like network with all these people and we do this and this and this. And I will say like that is a recipe for struggle, is if you allow your mind to be the authority over your gut. Um so something to keep in mind for April. um all right, May is the king of arrows, and that's a kingfisher bird. This one I feel like I'm gonna look at the book for this guy, because the authors of this, if you ever are looking for a really good tarot, the guidebook for this is really intricate and complex, and they talk about the animals' personalities, and so I'm gonna look up this one because I'm not as familiar with Kingfisher. Okay. You may need to exercise judgment, power, force of will. The king is impartial and helps you to see clearly what you no longer need to hold on to. Use your strength to cut yourself free of what weighs you down.
Mm.
So, yeah, that. mm. The other piece of this is that so a kingfisher is has the ability to dive into water and catch fish. And I find that really fascinating because like air is usually associated with like intelligence or like the heady things, and then water is like emotions. So it has this ability to like transverse both worlds,
Mm.
and be really specific about what it's going for when it does kind of go into the emotional depths. Um, so I think this is like an energy that you can call on during the month of May as like something to help you move out of the mental body and deeper into the emotional body, but with purpose. So it doesn't feel necessarily like you're getting lost in the emotions of things, because that I think emotional waters can just be really complex, and
Mm-hmm.
and feel like overwhelming or too much. And so I think kingfisher energy can help with like, what is it I'm specifically looking for here? And then of course like allowing giving you the permission and the power to cut things off as needed. um
Can I ask you something?
yeah.
And I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but the so like I said, my boyfriend's here in Tennessee, and our plan is for me to move here in 2026 when my son graduates from high school. The state bird is a kingfisher. And,
Mm.
sometimes when I'm here,
Hmm.
it's, I'm thinking, am I supposed to be here? Is this my next step? Is this my next life? Like, I don't know. And it's just so interesting, of all birds,
Yeah.
for that to come up for next year.
Yeah.
Um, it's just so,
Yeah. I think
I
that
don't
the
know if
sense
I'm
that I'm
reading too
getting
much
is
into
like,
it.
no, I think that these are like little hits of like, um, they're like little drops along the path, right? Like
Hmm.
to help you. Transition is hard. Like I know that it's been a few years since you separated, but like you're still in a state of transitioning.
Hmm.
Um, because you are still, there's still connections to the old relationship,
Hmm.
and you're still like kind of in that process of deconditioning from it,
Hmm.
from it and from,
Conditioning is a great word. It's a great word.
it's a really powerful journey because
Hmm.
I don't see, people call it like all kinds of things, self growth, healing,
Yeah.
whatever. And I really think most of the work we're doing is deconditioning so that
Hmm.
we can be who we are,
Hmm.
who we would be without like all of these outside things telling us who we're supposed to be.
Hmm.
Um, so it's more like an uncovering of you and that you're still in that space. So these little points where you feel like, oh, that's something to pay attention to, that's not you making more of it than you should. It's actually
Okay.
you acknowledging the energy that's there.
Okay.
And I would say like kingfisher might be an animal that you look into, working with, like, just like read more about kingfisher, explore it, but
Okay.
also do that, from an energetic place where like in meditation you just kind of ask like kingfisher to be with you and what it would like you to know or what it would like you to see, and
Okay.
then you just kind of develop a relationship with it over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Whether that means you're supposed to move to Tennessee or not, I'm
Right.
not sure.
No,
But
I was
but
not.
kingfisher is there coming up for you multiple times. That is something to think about.
Christy, I need you to tell me that right now. No.
I am not here to tell you the future. As I like literally like tell you what your ear is gonna look like. All right. Okay, so that was May, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. June is the Four of Vessels. I always find this one interesting. Boredom
Mm.
is the theme.
Boredom.
So, um, here's what I find funny about boredom is that, so I grew up with a parent who, refused to ever let us say we were bored. If we ever said I'm bored, then my dad would say like, well, then I have something for you to do. Like you can go
Hmm.
clean the toilet, and it was always something that was going to be really like pleasurable. So
Hmm.
it was like something we really conditioned away from, was like saying we were bored. And then I met someone probably 7 or 8 years ago, and she was talking about, she did a lot of like psycho spiritual work around parenting and children. And she's like, when kids tell you they're bored, they really just want connection with you.
Mm.
And it really reframed like how I looked at those interactions with my dad. I was like, oh, right. Yeah, I really did want connection with him. I don't know why I was saying I was bored, like, but it wasn't necessarily that I was like, dad, entertain me, but I was like, I did want to have more connection with him.
Hmm.
And so I think about boredom, and in the same ways that I think about, like, okay, so there's a phrase that says the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference.
Hmm.
And I think about that with boredom. Like, it's boredom is not, a sign that you should be quitting or canceling what you're doing.
Hmm.
It's a sign of a different emotion. There's another emotion behind the boredom. And
Hmm.
and this might be a month where you're just like, "Ugh, I'm really bored with this routine," or I'm really bored with, um I'm really bored with this situation. Like, I'm tired of driving to Tennessee. Like, I don't know how that's
Hmm.
going to pop up,
Hmm.
but wherever you notice boredom popping up in this month, allow it to be like a light in the dark for something else that needs to be or wants to be uncovered, because I think there's something else behind that emotion or that expression. And I'll just bring in like, internal family systems. Are you familiar with that? How
No.
that works or what that looks like? Okay, so it's a therapeutic tool that
Hmm.
some people use, whether they're therapists or not, but it can be used in therapy really well if you find someone who does this. It's IFS. Um, but it's this way of like understanding that you have internal parts that are like your internal family, and that all those parts have different needs and desires and ways of accomplishing their goals. And sometimes that works in harmony with you, with your like capital S self, but sometimes it doesn't. And so with that system, you're learning how to integrate those parts back into like your big capital S self so that everybody moves in harmony with each other. And sometimes, kind of coming back to like this example I gave, there might be parts of you that are saying they're bored, but really they're just needing you to connect with them. So keeping that in mind too, that like if you're getting hits of boredom, it might be a part of you, like it might be worth asking, okay, who's saying this? What part of me is saying this? And why are you saying this? Because it might just be that you've not been like noticing them or valuing them or affirming them. And it could be like a really simple internal conversation that you have where you're like, oh, I see that you're really frustrated with that. Thanks for sharing that with me. And like that part then feels like heard and validated. And then like it resolves, like the
Hmm.
feeling resolves, like the situation resolves. Um, and that's just like a plug maybe too to explore internal family systems, because um, that might be a really valuable tool. Okay, moving on to July. This is the one I mentioned is our only major arcana, and it's the World Tree,
Okay.
number 21 in the tarot. This is generally the world um, in this, because we're, earth based, we're tree.
Hmm.
I have you ever been in a prayer labyrinth? Are you familiar with a prayer labyrinth?
No.
Okay, so this is kind of what it looks like. There's a labyrinth here.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, this might be a month for you to like note it in your planner to find somewhere near you with a prayer labyrinth and visit that.
Okay.
Um, I've only done it a few times when I was visiting Toronto, but it's a really powerful experience because you walk in with a prayer, and then you walk through the whole labyrinth,
Hmm.
like thinking about that, contemplating it, not necessarily like mulling over it
Hmm.
or like asking it repeatedly, but like you walk in and you're like, man, what should I do about this? You walk in with that concern and you walk to the center of the labyrinth, and then you give it up, and you like lay it down, and you can take as long as you need. Like there's no rules. You could stay there for 3 hours if you needed to. Um, but like there's this like physical act of like laying it down there and then trusting that the answer to it is going to come. And so then you spend the rest of the prayer labyrinth kind of walking out like the release of that, like the energetic, like, you know what, I am going to trust this. I'm leaning into the trust that this answer is going to come to me.
Hmm.
um, so I think July, put that like in your planner, put it on your radar
Okay.
to visit a prayer labyrinth. Even if you're like, I don't have anything that's like really burning, I guarantee you're going to stand at the start of that prayer labyrinth, and the question is going to come to you. And you're going to be like, oh wow, yeah, I have really been thinking about that for a long time. I just didn't know how to articulate it, or I didn't know it was bothering me that much, or I didn't know it's just something that's going to be really pivotal for you.
Hmm.
Um, and this is a month for spending time in your cave. It's funny because this has like a little door. The tree has like a little door
Yeah.
that's
I like
like,
that.
if you were to go in there, it would feel like a cave.
Hmm.
Um, and so Nature is going to be a really important tool for you. Um, However, you can connect with that. But caves, especially find cave spaces. Like, be open to cave spaces wherever you go. Like, even if it's like, oh man, someone put me in this like corner office. Like, I'm just thinking of like scenarios
Mhm.
where it might feel like you've been relegated somewhere and stuck somewhere, but it's
Mhm.
actually meant for you to transform that space, like to alchemize the feeling of being put somewhere you don't want to be. It's up to you to like take that energy and transform it into, oh, this is actually a place I'm choosing to be. Like,
Mm.
um yeah, it's hard to put that into words, so hopefully that comes out when you need it.
Okay.
um So this is probably a really good time to note that the theme for 2025, in addition to, so this is your personal journey, and there's a card that
Mhm.
will represent the year for you, but the journey that we're all on is the year of the Hermit, and
You're the hermit.
the year of the
Interesting.
Hermit. Yep, and it is also a tarot card, so you can read up on it if you'd like. Um, but there's really this sense that like we're all going to be doing these really intense inner reflecting journeys, um like metabolizing grief, metabolizing, we're going to be lowering our masks, we're going to be um transmuting the expectations that have been put on us, we're going to be transmuting them into like real, like authentic expressions.
Mm.
This just like, there's something about this July that's going to be like tapping into that energy real heavy,
Mm.
but like it's not going to feel heavy for you. It's going to feel like like the best meal you've ever eaten, and like the best sex you've ever had. Like,
Wow.
it's just going to feel like the best of everything, but it's all going to be your own experience. Like, it's like you're not going to necessarily be doing this with anyone else. It's going to be an
Mhm.
internal journey for you.
Mhm.
And but not one that feels heavy or scary or hard. Just feels like really good. Okay. I think we can move on. August is Ace of Arrows, which is the breath of life. Arrows is swords in this deck.
Mm.
Fascinating that it's going to come kind of after this like reclusive
Mhm.
hermiting moment. You're going to like step out into the air and like breathe fresh air, breath of life. I think like the sense I'm getting from this is like part of what's going to happen in July is like there are parts of you that are awakening, and they're in moving into August. It's like they're going to be breathing life for the first time, and or not for the first time necessarily, but first time in a long time. And uh yeah, it's going to feel tremendously relieving for you. Even though July is going to be like this like really delightful like inner hermitage, like August is going to be like, okay, I can, like, we're breathing, all parts of me are breathing, we're online, we're like new ideas are coming to me, like new inspirations, like just that, like you can imagine like a body that's like being reanimated. It's like
Mhm.
like, and reorienting. There's going to be a lot of reorienting because all these new parts of you are now like having input, and it's going to be really authentic to you. because they are parts of you. They're not these are not just like conditioned pieces or pieces that you've silenced, and then you're like hearing all these other voices. This is like you are coming online. um and it's like the energy is like new and exciting, but in a really grounded way, like in this really peaceful, um mm, just like even keel, like everything's gonna work out. Like I have me, I'm gonna be solid no matter what comes at me. I feel like I'm ready to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good because it seems like in September we've got the Queen of Stones, and this is the bear energy. And she's standing at a cave, which I think is funny. She's like guarding her cave. Um, and I do sense there's like gonna be like there's going to be a little bit of need for that kind of inner mama bear energy to protect all these new parts of yourself, or all these I would say re-energized parts of yourself, because they're not new. They've always been there. They've just been laying in a coma essentially for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason. And that might be something too that's coming up, is like you're starting to understand all the reasons why those parts of you were essentially like put to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that might be some too, like you're going to be like, oh shit, that thing is still in my life, or that thought, that idea, that pattern. And so this mama bear energy is rising up um, to really set some very healthy, appropriate boundaries around you and these new parts of you, so that they're not, they're still they're online, but they're vulnerable, and they are susceptible, especially to old messaging. So if that old messaging is in your sphere in any way, and it could be something that seems really benign, like, it could be like a weekly phone call with your mom, or just like a dynamic you've established with someone at work or with one of your children. Like, it could be something that's benign, but it's actually part of the reason that part of yourself went to sleep to
Mm-hmm.
begin with. And so part of this mama bear energy is discerning that message, where it's coming from. If that's a well, one, the mama bear energy is going to need to put protections in place. So sometimes that's distance, sometimes that's changing the conversation, um, whatever that looks like. But then once the protections are in place, it's really important that to understand the source of that messaging, because it's often not just the person in our lives, it's that we have established that dynamic with that person, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's what they're reflecting back. And so it might be on you to change the dynamic of that relationship, which will take time. So like just keeping that in mind, it's not going to happen overnight, but um that not every relationship needs to be ended. Some just need to be reprogrammed. And sometimes that means like periods of time away. Like I'm thinking of this relationship I had with someone where I was getting together with her every probably 2 months or so to have coffee, and it was always kind of like the same conversation that we were having. And I was like, dude, I need time away from this. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did. I took like a whole year before I got together with this person again. And then when I got together with them, I was actually able to sit with their stuff and like, oh, okay, yeah, this is kind of the same story that they're living in. But because I have like no attachment to it now, it's okay. I can let them be, and I can kind of like engage with it a little bit or here and there, but I'm not walking away from the encounter feeling completely drained and
Mm-hmm.
frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm reprogramming that dynamic. Like I didn't cut that person off, but I also didn't get together with them for a year. So there's, sometimes it's like weighing out, like, I don't really want this person to be gone completely. Doesn't feel necessary that they're gone completely, but I also
Mm-hmm.
don't want them to be like as integral to my life as they have been in the past. So
Mm-hmm.
So just like mama bear energy is going to help you, I think, really navigate and discern which one you're doing, like which how you're approaching these different parts of yourself and what's affecting them.
Mm.
Um,
And that's my birth month. That's exciting.
right,
Hmm.
right. Mm, yeah. Okay.
Like that.
And Libra,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Mm, yeah.
And I just will say this, like I've mentally been trying to move into that mode, like through therapy and just journaling of growing up and in my relationship, my marriage. It's like where in my life were my protectors? Where was the
Mm,
person that was looking out for me, for helping me? And
mm-hmm,
it's something that I have mourned deeply, that
mm-hmm,
no one was there.
mm-hmm,
And I have slowly, like, the saying that keeps coming to in my head is, now you got to save yourself.
mm-hmm.
Now you've got to help yourself, and to know that my birth month of this coming year, I'm going to be at that point of strength, is good to know.
Yeah.
Because
That
as you can
feels
tell,
like
it still makes
empowering and
me
encouraging.
theory. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I need that to come out a bit more.
Yeah. So that like when we're thinking about like internal family systems, like from that lens,
Hmm.
usually what we find is like if we don't have external protectors when we're growing up,
Hmm.
and even into our adulthood, that we create them internally. And so kind of exploring like who has stepped up to be your protector could be really helpful. And then like really looking at how they've protected you and if that is something you still need, because a lot of times we form protectors when we're young. We form them from our childhood
Hmm.
places, and they don't have the skill set yet to protect us. So this could be a transition for you of like, okay, what are these protectors? How did they help me? I want to honor them and thank them for that. And it's time to disarm them because these parts of me are now ready to do the job. And those parts of you correspond with the divine feminine and the divine masculine.
Hmm.
And so the masculine being like the protector and the provider, and the feminine being receptive and nurturing. And just to like clarify, those are not like gender connected. This doesn't have
Right.
to be like mom and dad, or, you know, we have the divine feminine and masculine within us at all times and the capability to lean on them. And so part of this also might be recognizing that one or both of them is fairly disempowered, and we need to like spend some time empowering them to come into a place where they can protect you.
Hmm.
Thanks for sharing that, because that does kind of feel like the journey of this year. Like August is going to be like you're going to feel it. And I also sense like as a Libra, like balance is really necessary for you. And
Hmm.
that's part of the mama bear energy too, is like reestablishing a sense of balance,
Yes.
is you've been at like the losing end of that for too long.
100%.
Okay. So September. Okay. So October is the night of bows, and bows is our corresponds with wands, which
Okay.
is more like a spiritual, like a ethereal kind of thing. I
Hmm.
love this little guy. I don't know if you
I
can
know.
see, but he's like smiling with his little
Hmm.
eyes closed. He's like, yes. Um, and it's an interesting one to come after the Queen of Stones, because Queen energy is, Mama Bear energy is a different form of protection than Knight energy, like a knight, like with in its armor, and um, it's like it's more. Queen energy is more of like deeply empowered. This is her essence.
Hmm.
Knight energy is more of I'm here for you. What are your orders? What mission do you have for me? What do you need for me to do? Um, and so I'm getting the sense that like this is something more external to you. Like this is going to be someone who shows up as like a partner, but partner protector is like the phrase I'm getting.
Okay.
Um, and it's not necessarily that that's like partnership. Usually, like we talk about that usually in terms of like romantic relationships, but it's not. This could be any kind of relationship for you. Um, and it might just be energetic. Like it might not take the form of a real person in your life, but you might just get the sense that you have now you don't have to just be a protector in and of yourself. You now have this additional energy um, that's like going into the world and doing the protecting for you as well. Um, and it's kind of like a sense of like, excuse me, um, they're clearing the path for you. Um, and there's like, the Knights of the Round Table, like that whole idea, like there's a deep sense of trust there. It's why the story of like Lancelot is so impactful, because Lancelot like broke code, which meant like it broke like this tremendous trust that was placed. So the knight carries with it like a deep sense of loyalty to you, which means like this is something you can depend on. You don't need to necessarily be out there fighting all your own battles. You can trust that they're being fought on your behalf.
Mm.
And it looking into the next month, November, which is the Six of Arrows, is transition. And it makes a lot of sense to me why this like fox, this Knight of Bows in the fox, um, like I want to even share with you, because like the imagery is really fascinating here. There's like a little body of water here.
Mm.
It kind of gives me the sense that like this guy is like he's helping pave the path for this transition, which is like on water. And so November, that's November, the transition month. The fact that it's on water like signifies to me that this is going to be emotional more than anything. Um like uh I'm not sure if it's a leveling up per se, but there is like a moving from one shore to the next. And that can be literal, that can be figurative, it can be both, it can be a combination. Um, but emotions are the path. Like the way to the next shore is by being with what comes up emotionally for you
Mhm.
and allowing that to move through you, like allowing yourself to have that experience.
Mm.
I was just reading, this is something to keep in mind, or I don't know if you've heard about gene keys, but I'm not going to go into all of it, but like I was reading some of that today. Just
Mhm.
something to put on your radar when you feel called to it, start exploring it. But um he was talking about, actually, do you mind if I just grab it, because I want to
No,
read the
of course.
quote.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Okay, so this is the book I'm reading. It's called Gene Keys by Richard Rudd,
Okay.
and it's the 22nd key I was reading this morning. And okay, so he's talking about evolution, like using information for your evolution.
Mhm.
Um, but he says, at this stage in your evolution, the knowledge itself ceases to hold any real interest. You see it as nothing more than a bridge that you can now discard. This is reflected in the Buddha's own timeless words. My teaching is a raft whereon men may reach the far shore. The sad fact is that so many mistake the raft for the shore.
Mm.
So just in thinking about like this transition space for you, um, it's going to be tempting to like reach for solid things, and information is very solid. Like
Yeah.
knowledge is solid, right? Self-help books and
Mhm.
workshops and all of that, those are solid things we can hold on to, but
Mhm.
they're meant to be the raft. They're not meant to be the destination. So a big piece of this transition is trusting that if you just stay present for every moment of it, it will get you there. Like you don't have to worry about making any of it happen.
Okay. I love that. So many mistake the raft for the shore. That is
Yeah,
so good.
I that really hit me too. I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh,
So, so good.
yeah."
Mhm.
And because then they stay on the raft
Mhm.
and never reach like the destination, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um okay. So then last month of the year is the 10 of bows. And this is responsibility. So I'm going to share this with you. This is like we're on a journey here this last quarter of the month,
Mhm.
and it really feels like, okay, you were on one land in October, and then like you got on your ship, and then you like now you've landed at the base of this like mountain and it's
Right.
time to climb, right?
Ugh.
um so bows, I think I've been saying this backward. Bows represent swords. I've been saying this backward the whole time. Whatever. Um, so, like, this can feel like, how to say this? This can feel like as much of a burden as you would like it to be. And if you're like, well, I don't want any kind of burden, then, like, great, you can approach it that way. Um, but there's going to be, uh, this is like a generating month. This is like a month of, um, okay, the journey, I'm on the shore, but I'm not yet to the place I need to be, but I know it's there if I can just get this climb in. And the climb is, I don't know, maybe it will be literal for you. Maybe you'll like go on a hike and it's like literally climbing. Um, but it seems more metaphorical, like you're trying to reach a new height. And it's kind of like, at the beginning of the year you celebrated, okay, I
Mhm.
just leveled up, I'm in a new level, da da. I really think that this December is going to be like you're leveling up for the next like go round. um but it can feel differently than it's felt in the past. It can feel more like a journey you've chosen and responsibilities that you want versus something that's been put on you.
Mhm.
Like you get to you get to decide your perspective um as you make this climb. And then, okay, the theme for the year is the Page of Vessels, and this is an otter. uh so so the vessels is that's again, that's like emotion. And a page is like essentially like a they're like a junior admin, they're like an apprentice, they're someone who's
Mhm.
like, I'm just kind of new at this. So all of this is going to be an emotional journey that feel you're gonna probably feel pretty juvenile at. Like
Yeah.
there's gonna be this level of like, I don't know, am I a middle school kid? I can't like I don't know how to navigate this. That's okay. Like that is this is just trying to say like that's normal. If you can accept it and live with it, then you'll grow up into more mature versions of that. But the cool thing about otters is that they are land and water beings, so they have this ability to traverse both, like the land, which is like the material world, and the water, which is like the emotional world. So that's kind of your superpower, if you will, for the year is that you can be really versatile in this way. And any tools that you can utilize to make yourself more versatile will only aid you in the journey. So, if it's like, oh, therapy, I'm going to like do some more of that. I'm going to add meditation. Maybe I'll add some breath work, like exploring things that help you feel versatile in both your emotional body and your physical body and those worlds is really going to help you with the journey that you're going to be on through this year. Cause it is, this is definitely a powerful, and I would say pivotal year for you.
Mm.
It's a lot of internal work though. Like that's the, um, internal infrastructure is the phrase I've kind of come across lately. Like this is your strengthening and then sometimes rebuilding of your internal infrastructure. And so there may be moments where you're the only one, and I think actually this is going to be happening a lot of the time. You're the only one aware of these shifts and changes. People will become aware down the road as your external world begins to reflect your internal world. They will become aware of those. So you might get external validation and acknowledgement like 10 years down the road. um,
Yeah.
right, but it's so I just want to caution you not to look for that, not to wait for that, to keep moving through, and at the same time to allow people to see you. um and whether that's like, really at this space, I'm really only comfortable with this handful of people, that's fine. At least let be vulnerable with those people.
Hmm.
Therapists are great for that, partners, if you feel comfortable with friends, like it might be good to kind of sift through that before the year starts. Like, who are my allies in this journey, and how can I allow myself to be vulnerable with them as I process through things internally. And this is not meant to be like, how can I turn my partner into my therapist? But at the same time, like, in some ways we are mini therapists to each other, and the people
Hmm.
that are like really in our inner circles, we do provide like therapeutic relationship to each other in our day-to-day moments. And so just kind of keeping that in mind, like it's okay to lean on people, it's okay to lean on them and allow them to be mirrors and to help give you perspective. And some of them are probably even going to give you tools for the journey.
Yeah.
Like this is one tool, Kate's shared with you,
Yeah.
like this reading, this is a really helpful tool. And in 2 months someone might be like, hey, have you tried this? And you're like, oh, that would be really cool and helpful. And
Hmm.
um yeah, so any questions, anything that's coming up that feels like you need some clarification around?
I don't know. It's a lot to take in.
It is, and it's all theoretical because it's like
Right.
May of next year. What? I
Yeah.
don't know. I
Of
don't know what to
course.
think. Okay, May, great.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just I was raised by like a hippie earth mother that believes in God and Jesus. And so, she always said if you wanted to make God laugh, make plans.
Hmm.
And so, sit down with my calendar and was looking at the next few months and was just feeling overwhelmed with everything. And so it's just nice to kind of like refocus in a different way than
Yeah.
the day to day that can seem really overwhelming. And yeah, we can have this plan for May or my awesome mama bareness in September, but who knows what the universe is going to throw at me. But yeah.
Yeah. Or how those themes are going to show up for real, right?
Right.
Like, I was just in a group with some folks and we were talking about this year was the year of strength,
Mm,
was the strength card.
mm,
And And we were like, how did that play out for you?
Mhm.
And I wasn't aware through the year that that was the theme. But then looking back, I'm like, huh, yeah, strength was definitely playing out all over the place in ways I would not have anticipated. And one of those was very literal. I had a fracture in my arm 7 years ago, and then this year found out that actually had never really healed.
Oh.
And I found out because it finally broke like the plate that had been put in to set it. So like I
Mhm.
had literally a broken arm for 7 years.
Uh,
And so then they got it fixed. It's like repairing my strength was like one of the themes. But then like my family had to move unexpectedly in May. So we had like to draw on strength in a new way because we
mhm.
were like, okay, actually this move is for our best. So that's how we're going to look at it. We're not going to look at this as like this shit's happening to us. We're
Mhm.
looking at it as like we're being redirected in a good way, in a loving way.
Mhm.
And that took a different kind of strength. So these are all themes, these are
Right.
not meant to be like literal a bear is going to show up, or or even that you're going to be like in the moment going, oh wow, here's my mama bear energy, like, but you might look back at it and go, oh yeah, I
Mhm.
felt that, I saw
Mhm.
that come up in this way, or I saw it play out in this way. So just kind of holding it loosely, because it's not meant to be anything. Like I said, this is a reading of the energies right now as they are,
Mhm. Mhm.
and things can shift those, and it might manifest completely differently than what we've talked about. So
Right.
yeah, that's yeah.
So do you ever do like a follow up like this time next year, do how the year went based on the
I
monthly?
mean, we totally can do that. Like,
Mhm.
that can be another session that we
Mhm.
book where we spend some of the time not just doing the reading for the year, but doing like a review. And
That
I
would be so
haven't
cool
done
because
that with
sometimes
anyone,
it
but it would
takes
be really
someone
cool.
else
Yeah.
to like look at your themes again and then point out, remember when this happened, or
Yeah.
oh, it's helping you reframe it in a way that now I see that working in my life. I love that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and kind of on that note, one thing you might consider doing is having like a preview review of each month for yourself, where you
Okay.
take like
Yeah.
half of a day,
Hmm.
just kind of book it into your calendar now while you still have like kind of a flexible schedule before it
Hmm.
like really gets into motion. But like have a half a day at the beginning of the month where you're like, what is the theme for this month? And like
Hmm.
meditate, contemplate, pray, however that looks for you, on
Hmm.
how you could incorporate that or how you should approach that. And then kind of like that prayer labyrinth, like just trust then that it's going to
Hmm.
play out as it needs to. And then at the end of the month you can look back and be like, how did that play out? How did my month look? Oh, interesting. I am kind of seeing that showing up here and there.
I like
And that
that.
way you're reflecting on it in the moment versus like
Hmm.
waiting till the end of the year, because it's like it is really tough to go back to like January and February, when you're
Hmm.
sitting I'm like, even looking at pictures of my kiddo, I mean, they were a
Oh,
year and a half then, and now they're
right.
2.5. And I look back and
So
I'm like,
different.
babe, they could like barely walk.
Right.
Now I can't imagine life without them running everywhere. So like,
Oh, so
you have
fun.
that growth within yourself too,
Hmm.
where something happened in January and you're like, oh crap. Not unless you're doing the reflecting in the moment, it's harder
Yeah.
to remember. Yeah. Yeah, and I do generalized readings too. So if you get stuck anytime through the year and that's something that you feel like would be helpful, feel free to reach out.
Okay.
Um, it's similar to this, but it's usually with a question in mind, and so we spend the whole reading working through that question and giving you some tools and insight, things to think about. It is really a reflection of what you already know. So
Hmm.
oftentimes for people, it feels really affirming for them,
Right.
or giving them permission to like act on something they knew is like sitting there in the wings.
Hmm.
So just to know that it's not like, it's very rarely revolutionary.
Right.
It's
Right.
usually just
Hmm.
like, okay, yep, that's what I was thinking. Okay, great. But having some validation can be helpful. So
Very true.
yeah.
Well, I've loved this. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Yeah, I'm so glad that we got to connect. And I usually what I'll tell people is if you have any questions or need some clarification that comes up, feel free to ask, and I kind of tap in to see if that's my question to answer or not.
Okay.
Um, but it's worth asking, but I might just say,
Mhm.
you know, that's something you'll need to kind of sit with you and your guides and your grandmother was here with us. So she might be someone that can help illuminate the answers for you as well.
Okay.
Um, but questions are good. You know, as questions come up, write them down because that can also be a way of tracking like how the year went is like how those
Mhm.
questions got answered, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. It was really good to meet you. I'm going to hit stop record now.
Okay.